We want to give you an update that happened just today in the case a bit ago of the shooting of Jacob Blake. So in August, this is of last year, police officer Rustin Sheskey fired 7 shots at close range, the back of Jacob Blake, a black man, as Blake walked away from the officer and towards a parked vehicle where 2 of his young children were sitting. 6 of those shots struck Blake, who was left paralyzed, and that was the shooting that I'm sure you remember touched off major protests in the Wisconsin city. So in Kenosha, we had protests as a result of that. So Chief Daniel Miskinis said the use of force incident has been investigated by an outside agency and reviewed by independent experts. The Kenosha County District Attorney's Office announced in January that no charges would be brought against Sheskey. Now we're finding out that basically nothing is gonna happen because the chief says he acted within the law and was consistent with training. This incident was also reviewed internally. Oh, good, they internally looked into it. Definitely always find that they were acting outside of their training when they do it internally. Yeah. Officer Sheskey was found to have been acting within policy and will not be subjected to discipline and is now back on the job. So no charges, no discipline. Like, isn't that amazing, JR? They don't even need extra training or anything as a result of it. Not only is what you did not criminal, it's so cool. It's so awesome that you don't even need to be reminded of anything. No tweaks, no extra training, just get back on the job and keep doing your job, which we've just established involves sometimes shooting people in front of their kids who shouldn't have been shot.
Yeah, and you know what? If nothing else, it's a bit of an award. It's letting him know, hey, we got your back. That whole trauma and potential fear you went through for having any kind of consequences for your actions, we got by that. So it's a confirmation of continuing on. In fact, it's probably motivates to continue to do things like this because now his fear, whatever fear he had or aggression he had, whatever he felt in that moment to fire off 7, 6, 7, 8 shots in the back of a guy, whatever thoughts he may have had, like maybe I should have done it differently, have now all been cast aside.
Totally.
Now 100%. What you do is what you did was exactly right. In fact, do it again. So, whenever we say, oh yeah, we saw this happen on tape, maybe things will change. No, after seeing it on tape and things still don't change, all that does is make sure that it happens at more lethal and more violent levels, is all that means. We talk about all the time, like when people wanna say we're gonna, whenever prison time or even death penalty, things like that are supposed to have a deterrent factor for other people not to do it. Because we're all watching, right? Criminals are watching. And if they see someone get away with something so easily in the American justice system, they may be willing to do it too. That's what we tell everyone. What about things like this?
What about cops?
Aren't cops supposed to follow the law too? So if they do something, it's probably would have killed someone like this. Then after he gets off and just rolls back into society and goes back into work, that's a confirmation. Yeah, actually, we don't punish you for doing things like this. In fact, we reward you for it. Next guy, do it too. Get a little bit of recognition, bro.
Yeah, and Jacob Blake remains paralyzed as a result of it. Apparently, totally legitimately, there was nothing wrong with any of it. Great point by JR. Yeah, he doesn't have to question anything, and much more importantly, other cops don't have to. What they saw, what we all watched, was totally okay. Even though, like, it's madness that could be acceptable, and that they are completely leaving out that it was 100% generated by internalized racism. Let's play a game in the chat. If it had been me, if I had turned my back and walked towards my SUV, would I have been shot 6 times in the back? Please post yes or no in the chat. I think that's a pretty easy one as polls go for the damage report. But no, there doesn't have to be any training about internalized racism, about, okay, so like we get that we've trained you that you're supposed to be terrified all the time and that if you're terrified, you should start killing people. But like, maybe you shouldn't be way more terrified just because someone happens to be black. Maybe. No training about that. No difficult conversations. No self-analysis. We'll just move on.
Yeah,
well, we will. Jacob Blake is
John,
family's devastated.
If you are still walking towards the SUV and they're telling you stop and everything, their way to stop you is the first thought is not to pull out their guns. It just isn't. It wouldn't be.
Why would it be?
It would snatch you by the arm. It'd have some kind of restraining technique to pull you back from your truck. Instead, it's immediate. That's supposed to be the last resort. Or maybe it's not. As they already said, he did the right thing. So the last resort is not pulling out your firearm and firing to the back of someone. That's your first resort, and that's been confirmed by this police, this external investigation that said he did everything right. So the right thing to do is to do exactly what he did. That's what the system just said. And people said, no, there's no systemic racism in our system, not at all. What's the problem?
No, I heard on Tucker Carlson that there isn't. Yeah, someone says only if they watch the damage report. Well, that's a good point. I don't think I've ever talked about it on the show. A bit back, I had a very weird interaction with the police about TYT. And nothing happened. But like I was a little bit worried for a couple of weeks after that I
never
had been.
Told me this.
No, it was. They knew who I was. It was weird, and it was like after the election, and that was a tense time. Nothing happened. Apparently,
this sounds like
good.
A story that should be told on like that wild, overwhelming pregame show that you've been doing.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Well, you don't need to read any tea leaves for this. The cops knew who I was and started talking to me about politics and stuff. So that's cool. Anyway, I'm still alive. That didn't get me. J&J isn't gonna get me. As we all know, Pop-Tarts are gonna get me.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.